3rd, 2020 meeting of the Goffstown Select Board. This meeting is being conducted remotely via the WebEx platform with public access via telephone. There'll be more information and specifics on that shortly. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And I want to give the details about the WebEx format we're using tonight. In accordance with Governor's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, the Goffstown Select Board will utilize the emergency meeting provisions of RSA 91A to conduct meetings through electronic means while preserving, to the extent feasible, the public's right to notice of such meetings and ability to observe and listen contemporaneously. Public access meeting can be made by telephone by calling 603-766-5646 and using the participant code 785-645 followed by the pound sign. If any members of the public are experiencing problems with access during the meeting, you're asked to call 603-384-3624. There's also access available live on Goffstown Television Cable 22 or on the GTV Facebook page. However, Facebook will not be monitored for public participation during public comment. Residents interested in participating in public comment should call a public telephone access number. So now I need to read aloud the Right to Know Law meeting checklist. As chair of the Goffstown Select Board, due to the COVID-19 outbreak, in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order Number 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the Governor's Emergency Order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is confirming that we are doing several things. A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities, but by video or other electronic means. The town is utilizing the WebEx platform for this electronic meeting. The public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following telephone number. I said it before, I'll repeat it again. It's 603-766-5646 and using the participate code 785-645 followed by the pound sign. Item B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. The town previously gave notice to the public of how to access the meeting using the available telephone number with the posted agenda. Item C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem with telephone access, again, please call 603-384-3624 for assistance. And finally, item D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting and have it rescheduled at that time. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. So let's start the meeting by taking a roll call of attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there's anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the Right to Know Law. Yeah, my name is Collis Adams. There is no one present with me in the room. Kelly?
Kelly Boyer, no one present in the room with me.
Peter?
Peter Georgiantis, no one's present in the room with me.
Mark?
Mark Lemay, nobody present with me in the room at this time.
Okay, thank you. So,
And this is Chet, and I'm the only one in the room.
thank you, Chet. Sorry.
Sorry, Dan Conley here. I'm by myself.
Okay. Okay, so we do have an appointment at 6:15, but let's get started with the agenda. The first item on the agenda is the acceptance and correction of minutes. That would be the minutes from November 16th, 2020, that are public minutes.
I'll make a motion. We accept the 11/16/2020 public minutes with corrections if need be.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion made by Mark, seconded by Chet. Any discussion on the motion? I'll call the roll. I vote yes. Kelly,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes, sir.
and Chet.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0-0. I do not have announcements in front of me. Are there members of the board who have announcements they'd like to share with the other board members and with the folks who may be observing the meeting? Hearing nothing, we'll move along. Our first public comment opportunity is at 6:10. We're still early for that, being 6:05. Why don't we go down to the town administrator's report, Derek, and knock off some of those items?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. At tab 8 of your packet, you have your committee meeting schedule for this week. We have no meetings the rest of the week. I will remind members that Thursday on Thanksgiving, Town Hall, the library, and the transfer station are all closed. And then on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, Town Hall is closed. For the consent agenda, you have employee status report for DPW labor discharge with a 9-month probationary period. You have a firefighter 2/EMT new hire. You have a firefighter A EMT to firefighter paramedic merit increase. There's a release deed for map 4, 87-5-19. This is a property taken by tax collector's deed earlier this year that needs a signature of the entire board. And the highway safety grant agreement for fiscal year 2021 needs a signature of the chair or designee. This was accepted by the board on October 19th, 2020.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion by Peter and a second by Kelly to approve as presented. Any discussion on the motion? I would just will note, Derek, that I did sign the grant document.
Thank you.
So I'll call the roll. I vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes, sir.
And Chet?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes 5-0-0.
The next item you have in the TA report, normally we would do a special event permit under the consent agenda, but this one was a little bit different. We have a special event permit request, and it's coupled with an acceptance of donation of $1,000 to the Parks and Rec revolving fund. Newbridge Marketing LLC, they conduct one-day pop-up events for LL Bean. They're seeking a special event permit to hold a one-day event at the Parks and Rec building in the parking lot. They set up a tent, and they're seeking to do that on December 1st. They would be offering a $1,000 donation to the town in addition to the $50 special event permit. Department heads have signed off on the review for this, and the fire department would need to inspect any tent if this were allowed.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Peter. I have a question as well. Go ahead, Peter.
Derek, can we designate those funds to where it goes?
Yes, the organizer did not make an indication of where those funds would be donated. The Parks and Rec revolving fund was a suggestion on my part.
Okay, I would like to recommend that when it comes to that time. Seeing it's being held at Parks and Rec, I would think the $1,000 should be donated to the revolving fund.
Yeah, I agree on that, Peter. So my question, Derek, was who's going to run this event? Right? Who's going to be present on site to make sure it's conducted properly? They're following proper protocols.
They have employees that are there on site the entire day. They call them, I think they call them like road marketing people. But they're really, they would get there in the morning to set everything up, and then, like I said, any tents or structures would need to be inspected by the fire department that morning. They'd have their wares out for people to look through and to purchase, and then we would give them any advice on outdoor retail sales from the state of New Hampshire for general guidance. But they've done these. They're currently doing these in Portsmouth and other towns and cities throughout New England.
Thanks. And do we have a
Collis?
Yep.
Yeah, I just I want to make sure, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, that this does not compete with any of our local businesses, if I understand it right.
They do sell, a few of the similar outdoor wear that we may sell that you might see out of Goffstown Ace Hardware. Different brands. We did not think it was appropriate to do a setup at Town Hall down in the village. And there's nowhere that I'm aware of that might sell similar items in Pinardville.
And
Thank
Derek, Derek, do they have a point of contact with contact information in the event something crops up during the event?
Yes, they do. We've been the marketing, the woman that Catherine's been talking with has been very responsive. She's provided the required certificate of insurance. She provided us all the donation information, and she's been very responsive when we've reached out in the past.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from other board members?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Derek, we had discussed in the past about putting, potentially putting specific guidelines about the responsibility of enforcing COVID regulations from the CDC. Was that discussed with them?
If you, unfortunately, I don't have a copy of the actual permit in the packet for you to review, but I know that we would provide the marketing group with those specific guidelines, and we did put that as a requirement on the special event permit that was typed up for the board signature.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. I was heading in that direction as well. Any other questions or comments on this item? So the motion was to approve.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the special event permit and to accept a donation of $1,000 to be deposited into the Parks and Rec revolving fund in accordance with the New Hampshire RSA 31:95-C.
I'll second.
Second by Kelly. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. I vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Chat?
Yes.
What time is it?
And that's all I had
Yeah.
for the town administrator's report.
Yeah, it's time for the first public comment opportunity. Is there anyone on the line that you can see, Derek, who wants to make public comment?
No, Danielle is manning the phones at Town Hall for me this evening, but I am also able to see it. I don't see anybody on the phone for public comment.
Okay, for anybody who's joining the meeting remotely, now's your opportunity. There will be a second opportunity at the end of the meeting, but if you do want to make public comment, that would be your opportunity. Okay, thank you. Next we have the police chief. Good evening, chief. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to offer the contract for our prosecutional services for the town of Francistown. As most of the board probably knows, for the last 10 years, we've offered the prosecution services to them, or for them, I should say, and we're looking for the agreement for you guys to sign for that agreement again.
Thank you, chief. Anything unusual that needs to be noted, or is it pretty much just a carry?
No, it's all standard language. The fee itself stayed the same for this year. Everything's pretty much the same as it has been for the last 10 years. So just needs the selectmen for the Francistown already signed it. Just needs your blessing, and we'll continue our partnership.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from board members for chief?
Yeah, I got one question.
Sure, go ahead, Peter.
Now, my question is, when was the last time we raised our rates?
Well, give me 1 second. I believe it was maybe a couple years ago. You give me 1 second, I can pull that up.
And that was my question as well. I know we had discussed increasing, but we were also going to look at how often they utilize the service.
When was that discussion? Was that last year, or?
I think, was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 to 3 years ago, I believe, Chief.
Okay, I can tell you, just looking back real quick, we started in 2010 with them, and it was roughly 6,500. And back in Let me go back to 17, because I think we're at 72 now. It's probably gone up about 1,000, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, so back in 17, we were at 7,036, and I think the one in front of you is,
It's $7,212.
7212. So it's gone up. It's only gone up a little bit. Selectman Georgianis.
So you do have an escalator in there, maybe not a big one, but you do have one, right?
We have, and this year we decided not to move up. We went up last year, and this year we decided not to, due to the fact that last year they paid us, and we didn't really use that. We didn't really use this a lot due to the COVID, and I'm sorry, this year due to COVID, and our prosecutor has looked at their caseload and thought that that was a fair amount at this point for 2021.
If I make a motion, we approve the agreement with Francistown for prosecutorial services.
I'll second that.
Thank you. The motion made by Peter and seconded by Chet. Is there any discussion on the motion? And then I'll call the roll. I vote yes. Pete, Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes, sir.
And Chet?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes 5-0-0. Next on the agenda is the budget deliberations.
Well, Mr. Chair, before we get on to that, we do have a 6:15 appointment.
Is it 6:15 already? It is, isn't it? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you for reminding me, Derek. Okay, 6:15, we have an appointment. Property owner of 15 Andre Street, which is map 24, lot 38. Property owner's request for a building permit on a private road under RSA 674:41 ID. Somebody presenting, Derek?
I have Mike Gallows on the line. Mike, if you can unmute.
Mike, can you hear us?
Hey, sorry about that.
No problem. Why don't you introduce yourself, Mike, and give us a little rundown on what's being proposed, what's being requested.
Mike Gallo from MG Holdings, and we're requesting a building permit for renovation on the property at 15 Andre Street in Goffstown because it's on a private road.
Okay, the details are in our packet. I hope folks got a chance to look through them. Are there questions for Mr. Gallo on his request to build on a private road?
Well, it's not building on a private road. It's an existing building that we're renovating.
So you're renovating an existing building,
Yes.
but it still requires a permit because you're on a private road. And could you just explain what the permit entails, or the request for the permit?
It's a split level
Okay.
home, and that's part of the flood zone over there. So we're changing it from a split level to a raised ranch. So we're raising the front door up about 4 feet, and we're converting, we're taking all the utilities, the laundry room, and putting it up on the first floor so we can get the whole property up as high as we can, and out of the flood zone as much as we can over there.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Kelly, please.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo, I saw in one of our memos that we received that this was in the wetland buffer. And I just want to make sure your plans haven't changed to extend into that conservation district buffer.
No, the plans are the same as what we submitted.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Peter.
Yeah, as a member of the Selectmen's rep to the planning board, we reviewed and discussed this quite, and we came up with, we could find no reason to deny this recommendation to the select board.
So does it need to go before the Conservation Commission or in the outer?
No, this is not within the 100-foot setback.
okay.
Nancy's memo of November 4th confirms that it does not extend beyond the enclosed unfinished porch, the deck that's being placed on. So there's no impact on the wetland surface water conservation district.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other questions for Mr. Gallo?
I make a motion that we grant the building permit for construction on a private road.
I'll second.
Yeah, we need to, there's some additional things that need to be done though, right? There's the waiver of municipal liability.
Yes, we would require a recording of municipal waiver of liability in accordance with RSA 674:41.
That would be incorporated in your motion, Peter and Kelly?
Yes, that's part of the motion.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? I'll call the roll. I vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes, sir.
And Chet?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Gallo will be in touch about the municipal waiver, and then that way you can work out the building permit. So I'll be in touch tomorrow about that.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thanks for participating, Mr. Gallo. Have a good evening.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're back onto the agenda. We're now down to item 9.
We're at item number 7, the Parks and Rec.
I'm sorry, yeah, I skipped over that one. Yeah,
Have a recommendation on the shed bid.
right. Thank you. Rick with us? Rick, you there? Do we need him? Derek?
Yeah, I'm with you, but I got some barking dogs right now. Sorry. Yes, we had 4 bids received. If you have the bid tab, I'm sure you probably do. It's in front of you.
Yeah, it's on tab 7 of our booklet, by the way, tab 7.
Tab 7, okay. And the commissioners are recommending that we go with the New England Outdoors at a $14,984 value. The 4 bids, they are the lower bid. There was some pretty high bids and some pretty close, the 2 close bids and 2 kind of high bids. So they recommend that we go with New England Outdoors.
Question,
Go ahead, Peter.
how could they be so much, almost 38,000, one's almost $40,000 difference?
Yeah, one's way
My guess, I'm not a contractor, but my guess is that New England Outdoors and Reed's Ferry build these type of structures off-site. So maybe they buy product ahead of time and they get a set price on material, whereas the other 2 contractors would be buying it now when they get awarded a bid, and the cost of lumber at this point in time is through the roof. That's just a guess, but I couldn't tell you anything other than that.
Did you research that at all, Rick, to make sure we were getting the same thing, dollar for dollar?
Yeah, yes, we did, Peter. We've had a shed come from Reed's Ferry before, and New England Outdoors is the same type of company. And we also researched New England Outdoors and found that the customers that they worked with are very satisfied, and the materials are quality. Sorry about the dogs.
So Rick, that high bid is basically a stick-built project where they order the materials, bring it on site, build it on site.
What they do is they build the majority of the shed off-site, and then they bring it on location, and then they finish the job on-site.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion and we approve the bid of $14,984 to New England Outdoor for the shed for Parks and Rec.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Motion made by Peter and seconded by Mark.
Yep.
Any discussion on that motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Rick, can you please just remind me of the budgeted amount that we had for this project?
We estimated about a $15,000 cost.
Okay, so does this include installation as well?
It sure does.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the roll. I vote yes. Kelly,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes, sir.
and Chet.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 500. Okay, that caught the one I skipped over. Now we're down to item 9, tab 9 in your packets. This is the budget deliberation. And first I see out in the tab is the library trustees warrant article that they're recommending.
Mr. Chair, I think the one item that is not included in your packet this evening was a couple of slides that I sent out earlier today, and I'd like to call those up because for the order of items this evening, I'd like to give you the department head recommendations on the general fund operating budget
Okay.
before you get into a discussion on special articles.
Fair enough. Go right ahead. Proceed.
Okay, let me bring up just the two slides that were shared with everybody earlier. And for members, you do have in your mailbox, and they were sent to you electronically, the tax impact. Well, you have a copy now of the default budget, as well as a copy of the estimated tax impact. And when we look at default budget, you need to remember that the default budget includes the increase in insurance. It also includes the increase in New Hampshire retirement system for all wages going into the year, as well as those contractual CBA wage increases that take effect July 1st. The default budget also includes $500,000 increase to the road plan. That was the will of the voters at 2020 town meeting. We included language that if that special article passed, that additional $500,000 increase would be included in both the operating budget and the default budget. So when we look at the default budget for the general fund, with those items included, that is an appropriation of $21,028,361 with a calculated tax rate of $8.91. The select board level is similar. Again, it includes that $500,000 increase to the road plan, as well as insurance, New Hampshire retirement, and CBA wages. The only change that's been made to the department head level, it was a correction to elections. This was a reduction of $4,500. Selectman Georgianis brought up during my presentation, he thought that there may be an error. We looked into it further, and there was an error. We had it's $1,500 per election, and we had not correctly calculated that out. So we did make a reduction there. It also includes a non-union wage matrix adjustment, as well as step increases for eligible employees on July 1st. And it also includes the department head's recommendation to use $600,000 of projected surplus from the 2020 budget at tax rate setting in 2021. That would be a calculated municipal tax rate of $9.04 per thousand. It's a difference of about just over $300,000 between default. Well, it's an additional $300,000 of taxes that we would need to collect if you were to use the projected surplus of $600,000 over what default is. So that's what makes up that 13 cents. But we'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have about the operating budget expenses.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Peter.
Last week, we asked the department heads to take another look at their budget. What adjustments did they make?
We as department heads did not make any adjustments. Again, I believe if you talk to any of us, we brought in what we felt was pretty lean increases or modifications in areas where it was needed. We were up against the increase to New Hampshire retirement, as well as insurance, as well as the additional $500,000 for road plan. we would propose they use that $600,000 of projected surplus, but otherwise the department heads have no proposed changes to the budget.
So what you want us to do is go forward with a budget increase of 79 cents? Is that what you're saying? Is that what it's?
I think the trouble with comparing the 2021 tax rate against the 2020 tax rate is the 2020 tax rate is artificially low. It was offset by CARES Act funding. If we did not have the CARES Act funding, we were anticipating a tax rate of $8.58 per thousand if all appropriations passed and the revenues came in as anticipated. So while this will be an increase, it takes into account the will of the voters for the $500,000 to the road plan. Plus, it's not an increase over a base of $8.24. It's really over that $8.58 out of last year's approved budget.
My point here is that last March, when the voters went to the polls, we had no idea about COVID and how many people were going to be unemployed and the amount of expenses we were going to incur because of this at our personal levels and the reduced amount of income. And I really think that we all need to take a look at this a little closer and try to get that down. Even 46 cents is a lot of it, is a large increase. For some of these folks that are going to be out of work or going to be at reduced pay. I really think we need to look at it, whether it's more than 600,000 or whatever. We're in a unique situation now and it's not getting any better. And I'm concerned that we're going to be really hurting people next year with that 46-cent increase, or it's actually going to be a lot more than 46 cents, but 46 cents more than we projected last March.
So
No, and I think the department heads definitely heard that concern. However, without a reduction of services or a change of services, we really feel like this is the appropriation that is needed. Our suggestion would perhaps then would be to consider promising more use of fund balance.
Does this include the special article for the library?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Does this include the special article for the library?
No, this is simply the operating budget for the general fund. I wanted to try and keep the operating budget discussion separate from special articles.
So if I'm looking at this right, we still have the special articles, which are going to add, if they should pass, but we're asking 19 cents per thousand for the library. Would that be accurate?
Yes, let me just click to the next screen.
Right.
So what we estimate the library warrant article would add 19 cents. Crispin House and Main Street, as they are currently proposed, would be about a penny each. And then we also have 2 collective bargaining agreements that we are still in negotiations on. So those would have an impact as well.
So before we even get started, if we just, the library's 19 cents, that brings us up to 75 cents. I'm sorry, 65 cents. And then another couple of cents a piece, that's 67 cents. It seems to me that we need to find some place to cut. I don't think we can sustain a 67-cent increase in tax rate. I just don't think it at this point in time. And I'm arguing for common sense from this board, whether it's increase the amount of money from unreserved fund balance or decrease spending someplace. Maybe now is not the time to spend 19 cents on a library addition, or that's just the plan. The library addition is $4.9 million the following year. And I'm still not in favor of supporting with the Main Street. So that's 20 cents right there we could deduct off of that increase.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask that we maybe focus on the operating budget? Because I do have the library trustees as well as Goffstown Main Street online to talk after the operating budget. And I think we could
Look at the whole picture. I completely disagree. You got to look at the whole picture. We can't just say, okay, on this and then move on to something else. We need to look at the whole picture. And that is part of the whole picture.
Okay, thanks for waiting, Peter. Can I hear from other members of the board?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Chad.
In looking at this, I mean, Peter is spot on. There are people in this town right now who are going through real tough times due to COVID, things outside of their control. However, and so I absolutely do not support a tax increase of that much. However, I would not recommend decreasing any services that we currently provide. To Derek's point, I'll stay away from special articles for now, but I would suggest looking at the option of the general fund. I couldn't in good conscience support a tax increase of that much at this time with COVID making people unemployed, with children sometimes home from school certain days, in school other days, people losing out on hourly wages because they have to be home. There's so much to consider in the big picture that my suggestion would be, I certainly don't want to draw back any services, because I would argue those are needed more now than they ever have been as well. So I would strongly suggest taking a closer look at the fund balance and increasing what we use to offset it there.
Chet, are you talking about tapping more of the unassigned fund balance?
Yes, I am, sir.
Pulling more of that in? Do you have anything
Yep.
specific to recommend, or?
I think that I honestly believe we need to stay, if we can, as close to where we were at last year. Because people are not doing better this year than they were last year. They're doing worse in a lot of cases. And so we really have to consider that. So whatever that amount is, and off the top of my head, I'm not doing the math correctly, but whatever that amount is what I think we should really look at if possible.
What amount would that be, Derek? Any idea, real quick, without?
I think we talked about specific projects such as CCTV, the locker room renovations that are needed for the police department, that there was some one-time projects that we could fund that are currently in the budget, not special articles. Right, Derek?
Yes, the recommendation from the auditors has always been, if you were going to use fund balance for special articles, that you would do it on one-time capital expenditures that are not likely to reoccur. Answer Selectman Bowen's question, to go from just default of $8.91 back to $8.24. You would either need to cut or use an additional $1.1 million from fund balance, which again is something that is available to the board at tax rate setting. But that is the number really to get that 67 cents.
Is that plus the 600,000?
Derek, what's the fund balance?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What's the fund balance right now?
The fund balance is close to 7 million, and that's at about 14% versus your target of 8%, which is $4 million.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes, Kelly, please.
So the 2020 tax rate is 67 cents lower than the default. So are we talking about proposing a budget that's lower than default? Is that the goal?
Well, I think if you're looking at that way, Kelly, you would take what the difference is from default and what it would take from fund balance to bring it down to that. Does that make sense, what I just said?
It does.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm hearing you, yeah.
So if default is 891, and remember, this is without special articles.
Right.
And use fund balance to bring it down to 824. That's a huge amount of money. Derek, was that what number you gave us? Is that plus the 600,000 that you already talked about using?
The 891 does not include the proposed 600,000 that the department heads are recommending. The 904 takes that into account.
So what would you use out of fund balance to get it to the 824?
I think, again, to get, if you're starting with a base of default at 891, you'd need $1.1 million from fund balance at tax rate setting time. Again, because that's default, I would advise the board not to promise that to the taxpayers, because you would be making that decision at tax rate setting time.
It could be a different board at that time also.
It could.
Yep.
So,
Looking at a potentially larger increase when we don't have those funds to offset. I'm not saying it's the right thing, I'm just saying it out loud.
Yeah, that's accurate.
so I think what we're looking at here, me personally, for being on the board for a few years and being on the budget for a lot of years, is we have some special articles that are coming up that are on track. That we have to decide where we stand. Now, when somebody votes on that, we want to make sure that we can say that, you know, we've considered this in our budget request, and we know that there's going to be an increase in taxes. And if you vote for this, you're going to have an increase. I think if we went in, this is my personal thing, with a reasonable amount of taxpayer, and I don't think 75 cents is reasonable, or 65 cents, or whatever. I think it needs to be something reasonable, and then we can add in the special articles, say this is what they are. I do, like I said, we'll do special articles in a little while, but we need to get this down. I just can't see us at this time, at this point in time, that we could give much of an increase. I just don't see it. People are hurting out there. Chet's absolutely right. People are losing hours because they got to stay home with the kids. And we see nothing but an increase in COVID cases and potential shutdowns again. And I don't think it's like that. We take that into consideration. Yeah, we're looking at a year from now, but 6 months ago, we still have to look at it.
Mark, do you want to weigh in? Please.
Mark, you're muted.
For me, I'm looking at the $1.1 million pretty heavily. But the issue is when we come to voting, whether we get it or not is the thing that will either help us or not help us. And the other thing I was looking at is, I know we don't like to do it, but we go in and we start chopping away money from some of the special programs and some of the funds that we have. I'll use the example. Take $500,000 away from the road plan. Take $100,000 away from the Goffstown Grasmere General, the town hall over there. There's a couple other places I could find money, but that's what I'm looking for. I'm not very happy to see the fact that we're bringing the budget up where the budget's going to be, because both Chet and Peter both said, and I'll echo their comments exactly. People are struggling. People are having a hard time to survive today, and we need to help the people in this community so that we can have a community that will be strong and get better as time goes on. If we cut our services, the services are going to suffer. People are going to bitch, I guarantee you. Trash, fire, police, that all affects the community very well. And I'm not in favor of cutting any of those items. We need those items today. We need the ambulances more than ever because of the COVID stuff. We need highway with trash pickup more than anything. Wintertime snow removal. I mean, look, this year we've gone out to contract. I mean, we've already started a trend that I don't like. I would like to keep the snow plowing in the town of Goffstown and control it within. We're going to spend a considerate amount of money just to hire these 2 or 3 trucks that we could keep in the budget, is the way I look at it. So I'm in favor of everything that Peter said. I'm in favor of everything that Chet has said, and Kelly as well. I think we should sit back, look at all the special articles. Let's look at Main Street. Let's look at everything that's coming out tonight. Maybe we can take money away from things that will ease the pain a little bit. That's my 2 cents.
Yep,
Hey,
thanks,
Collis,
Mark.
I have a couple of questions for Derek.
Okay, go ahead, Peter.
Number one, the road plan. That was voted on by the voters last year that we had to put it in this year's budget. Is that
Yes, there was wording in the special article that said if passed, it would direct the town to include the increase of $500,000 in both default and operating budget. So you have those increases in both default and in operating budget.
Is that for the 2021 year or was that for 2020?
That was for the 2021 year. It was voted on at 2020, but again, it had that language that directed the board. In the past, the board has started with that in both default and select board and has taken the option to move some portion out to special article funded from fund balance.
We don't have that this year, right? Because we had originally talked about increasing it every year. As in this year, in the 2021 budget proposed, is there another increase in the road plan?
I know that Adam is on, but there is no increase over 2020 levels.
No, and just to add on to that too, at CIP this year, I told the committee that I did not plan to increase that. So in my CIP, it's flatlined after the increase to this year.
Thank you. Chief, Fire Chief, we went and you bumped up to 300,000. Did you bring that back to the 250 or 225 we were at previously?
So thank you, Mr. Georgianthus. Yes, we were actually, excuse me, our command staff went through our entire CIP plan. I do have a couple of slides if you'd like to see what we did. I'd be happy to show it, but we were able to shift around some apparatus and reduce that number from 300 to 250.
Thank you, Chief. I mean, and there's no question we're all in consensus that, you know, these are extraordinary times, very extraordinary times, and having a toll on all of us, not just those who have children in schools, but also those on fixed income. It's having a toll on every single citizen and taxpayer. And I think we need to do whatever we can, and I'll echo it and join in on that consensus that we need to look to whatever we can do to get the tax increase down as much as possible. And I would be supporting use of the unassigned fund balance much more heavily than we are. Have to look, maybe if we can come up with some different scenarios, Derek, you know, for different levels of unassigned fund balance. If we use it, what's it bring it down to? What's it do to the tax rate? So that, you know, I have some sort of range to work with here. You know, we can start looking at cutting services, but, you know, we've heard it time and time again, you know, we've got great fire department EMT response times. We've got great road plan, except for the occasional complaining about some specific areas in town that, you know, if we start cutting in those, we're going to start backpedaling on all the good things we've done. But the bottom line is I do agree that we need to look at how we can get that tax rate increase down to something that's more palatable to the general citizens and voters. And again, I look first and foremost at unassigned fund balance because that's where we can find the monies.
Wallace, can I comment on what you just said?
Sure.
I agree with you 100% on using the fund balance to a certain extent. There were years before, I'm not sure if anybody here was around then when we had to borrow money. I don't think we want to do that.
No.
And then there are certain things that have to be done to appease the employees of the town. Number one is the police station. We have to go and do the remodeling or something over there. We're hiring more women. They deserve to be treated just as well as the men. And I think that, you know, that type of stuff has to be taken care of. I would never want to think that the chief of police would ever cut that type of stuff out of his budget. So I'm hoping that we can use more fund balance, but we also have to be more reasonable. Maybe we don't need some of the special articles that are coming up before us. We need to fund the police, the contract for the police department and the dispatchers. That's going to come before us. And that's one of the things. Without our people, you know, we're screwed. So we need to make sure we take care of them first.
Yeah, and
Mr.
under the CBAs, we'll have to.
Can we go through some of the special projects that are in the budget currently, not articles, but projects that one-time projects that we can fund?
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. Sure, that's absolutely appropriate. Do you have someplace you wanted to start, Kelly?
Well, the two on my list are the changes to the locker room at PD.
Yep.
That's a one-time project we can fund. The CCTV cameras, that's a one-time project we can fund.
Yep.
I have a list. I'm looking for my list. I know there were a few more.
When you say fund, you're talking about fund out of the fund balance?
Yeah,
Yeah.
one-time expenditure.
Yeah.
Unique one time, not repetitive.
And are we gonna have, well, I guess that's a special article, but the 100K from Grasmere?
Right now, the recommendation for both the Grasmere Town Hall Capital Reserve Fund and the Fire Apparatus Capital Reserve Fund would be to fund those out of fund balance. And we may have, if you've got a target number, we might have department heads that could chime in on, which CIP projects might be more appropriate to either move out or move the fund balance to special article, or to delay because of operational constraints that might make them tough to do next year.
I have a question, Derek. Chairman, Kelly just mentioned like the locker rooms and the TVs. Now, if we decide to fund those out of the fund balance, does that make them a special article?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
that I would not recommend. I would not recommend we do that.
I mean, I guess there's Selectman Georganis.
Yes.
I guess there's two ways you could do it. You could promise to use fund balance at tax rate setting to offset the tax rate for those projects. That way they don't go into a special article. No means no, especially with something like the locker room over at the police station. So I do see what you're saying. You might not want to put some items into a special article, because then no means no, you wouldn't be able to do it. So you might want to pick and choose carefully which items you'd move out.
Right. That's my concern when you push little articles and it's not, little things like that, the locker room and cameras and stuff, that kind of stuff could, like you said, no means no. And then the police chief wouldn't be able to do those renovations over it. Whether he found that even in his budget, he wouldn't be able to spend the money to do that because he was told he couldn't.
Right.
So really our only option, because capital reserve or capital apparatus fund, and that's already a special article.
And Grasmere is a special article.
Yeah.
And the library is a special article.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So we're going to have the two CBAs. Hopefully we'll have two as special articles.
Mr. Chair, did you want to maybe ask or hear from the department heads?
Yeah, sure. I mean, they've got something they want to chime in with. Absolutely, I want to hear from them.
I know I saw Adam raising his hand. That's the only reason.
Yeah, I mean, these are the budgets they put together, so I'd definitely like to hear from them. Adam?
All right, I'll hop on first, take the first mover bullet. The couple things I might recommend taking a look at would be, I think the Grasmere traffic study that's been on there a few years, been deferred a couple times, but that's one that I think easily the town could sustain deferring again. I know we hate to push these planning things off, but it's not really a public hue and cry about traffic over there. So if that's got to go, that would be my first piece of ballast to jettison from my end. That's $25,000, just deferred altogether. The Merrill Road Bridge construction. So this is a 2-year CIP project. We've got $27,000 in the budget this year. We have not spent that yet. So I think it's going to probably be a stretch to say that we could actually get that constructed in 2021. at this point. So that might be one that could be deferred as well. So stay on track with the design piece, but defer the construction, and that's 132,000. And then maybe one that might be good project for a special article would be the Bog Road bridges. That's 165,000 if you want to maybe propose that out of fund balance.
Those sound like good options to me. Others?
Thanks, Adam, for coming up with that, by the way.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that, you know, I trust our department heads to tell us what they can push off and what they need. But we also have to consider, again, if these things don't pass, what compounding, pushing things off does to the budget for next year and the years prior. So just saying out loud.
Kelly's absolutely right. We've done this in the past, and then all of a sudden, it boils up to a big mess at sometimes where we got too much stuff going. I think we need to bite off the little stuff, and the bridges have been in there, Adam, for how long now?
I'd have to look. I think Bog Road is on, it's maybe third go round. It's at least once prior to this. Those are not in danger of collapse. It's more the guardrails, you know, or maybe if we reduce the number, we have them coupled together because it's similar work, similar design. But if we've right now planned to take those in-house, if we wanted to reduce the project and just do one of the two bridges, that substantially cuts that number in half. If we're not contracting it out, it maybe doesn't make as much sense to have to do them both the same year. So there's another option there too, with some flexibility. And just back to the Merrill thing, I think it's probably just going to be tough for me to even spend that money by the end of 21, just knowing that we're going to enter the bidding season probably without a full fleshed out design. So it might be a trick. So you recommend? I'd say if you want to make some action, I would defer the Merrill construction phase by 1 year. I do have a little bit of a dip in my CIP in the out years, so I can sustain a little bit of deferrals right now. And then Grasmere traffic study being only 25,000, that's kind of take it or leave it, I guess. If you just want to get that one off the plate, it's not big money.
So Adam, which one was the guardrail?
So both the Bog Road bridges are guardrail. Merrill Road actually has some guardrail involved as well, but it's also decking and drainage there.
I mean, when you're talking about guardrail, are we moving forward with some safety concerns here? I mean, certainly don't want to, take out work that's going to create safety concerns for the citizens. I mean, that's one of our primary responsibilities as well.
That would definitely be my third option, and I would, if you're going to do anything for that, I would say fund it with fund balance. Again, I guess we got the no means no piece too, so you have to keep that in mind, I suppose. But the first one to go, that's a good chunk.
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
When we say fund it with fund balance, we've already talked about using fund balance next October, if I'm right, Derek, to reduce the tax rate. And if we start funding projects out of the fund balance, that is going to skew the numbers.
Yeah, you can only go to that well so many times.
That's right.
Well, I would just say that right now the department heads have taken a deep dive in what we project for surplus in 2020 that would add to the existing fund balance. I think the number that we gave you last week was $682,000 across all 6 departments. So department heads are recommending taking that surplus that would go back into fund balance and promise to use that $600,000, which is on top of the $7 million at tax rate setting in fall 2021. So any projections would be based on that. So I think taking individual projects or increases to road plan or anything else, I'm not worried about being in trouble with fund balance. Again, because you're at about $7 million and your 8% target is closer to $4 million.
Yeah, that's my thought.
Go ahead. So is your thought, Derek, to use the $1,682,000 or $1,600,000 $1 million to be used, what's November and the 600 now?
Our guidance is to promise the 600,000 at tax rate setting. So that brings you to a proposed budget with a $9.04, and then consider either pulling out some of these CIP items or putting them to their own special article. Again, in years past, the board has made the decision to move that road plan out to a separate article from fund balance to, and it has been successful. Again, it's not an increase over last year where we were doing it in the past because it was continually ratcheting up. Now that we're at a pretty steady of 1.6 for 2 years in a row, it would be a little bit of a change, but you know, you could do that. That would drop both your default and your select board budget down.
But really, we're just about making a decision on the amount that we're going to promise to use to offset.
Again, you're going to, the wording that we put in the voter's guide and that we put out there, that any tax rate calculation is based on certain assumptions. And one of the assumptions is that this board at this time would use $600,000 of projected surplus from 2020 in 2021. Again, the board could be a completely different board a year from now when we're setting tax rate. So I guess that's the only caveat that we put on that.
That's a real concern because we could come up next October and something, all of a sudden, we've made promises that we can't keep. So I would rather work on the budget part of it and the special article part of it as best that we can, and then worry about in October what we can use for fund balance. Now, I'm not sure what you keep talking about, Derek, on the 500,000 in the road plan. Are you talking about, because that's already in the budget for this year and for next year, because that's what the special article said. So are you saying we defund the road plan and then put it back out as a special article?
I think that you do have that. I think that you would have that discretion if you wanted to, if the board wanted to do that.
I thought that was a special article that instructed that it be done that way.
It did instruct the board to do that. I don't know that that is binding on your budget.
Well, sure as hell I'm going to talk to something, then turn around and not do it. That's not the right thing. So that 500,000 is in there, whether we like it or not, and we really can't put that back out to a special article because we already did, and the voters voted for it. So if we're not adding 500,000, there shouldn't be an extra special article for it.
Yeah,
I don't know how others feel about it, but that's my feeling.
That was a conscientious decision by the board at the time, with
That's right.
Relative to the 500,000.
Do you feel Collis? Do you feel comfortable taking $500,000 out and putting it back out again?
I don't.
Yeah, me either.
That thing's been a ping pong ball for years.
Right.
It's in, it's out. It's in, it's out.
I don't feel comfortable taking that route either.
Okay, so now where we stand. I say my feelings are default and work from there. We still want to have at least 2 special articles, 3 special articles, depending on where we go from, with the 2 collective bargaining agreements. And we know we have, you still have Main Street, you still have Crispin's, and then you still have the library coming up.
Yeah, Main
All
Street.
special articles.
Why don't we go through those now then?
Yeah, we can. To me, Main Street and Crispin's are really symbolic. They're not a real big heavy hitter on the.
No, but still, it's a hit.
Oh, I know.
And we've just asked department heads to take cuts, and you look at the budget, and we have one that is sustained their budget or their requests, and one who has increased their request by 25%.
I know, Peter. We got to watch the pennies. And 1 penny here, 1 penny there, 2 pennies.
That's right.
So how would you like to proceed, Mr. Chair? Again, we do have the library and the library trustees, as well as Goffstown Main Street on the line.
Derek, can you put together a Excel spreadsheet with various scenarios? If we use this much fund balance, what'll it do to the remaining fund balance relative to what we should be keeping in there as a safe amount? What it means to the tax rate? Something that so that we can, we're going to have to revisit this. Obviously, when we revisit it, we can say, well, this one I can tolerate. This one I cannot tolerate. Then we got some stuff in between. Then maybe we can start looking at some pennies here and there. I mean, that would help bring my focus, my view into clear focus.
So I guess I just want to be clear what information you're looking for. Right now on your tax rate calculation sheet at the bottom left,
yep,
you do have basically your quick tax rate estimate. If you've got a goal tonight that you want to get to, I can tell you what that dollar figure that you would need to move out to special article with fund balance or to completely remove from the budget. Because right now the difference between default and the select board is 13 cents. That's about $226,000 of appropriation.
226.
Yes.
But default is how much of an increase, Derek?
Default we are calculating would be 67 cents over the 2020 municipal tax rate.
67?
Yes.
And that's using how much of fund balance? 600,000.
That is using no surplus fund balance. We would leave that to the board's decision in the fall.
All right.
And that's void of all special articles.
Right.
That's before special articles. Yes, that's just default.
Well, it sounds to me like we got to at least start there.
Well, Collins, can we move on to special articles? Let's talk about that.
Sure, why not? we kind of beat that up pretty good, and I think people are still trying to digest it and get a firm handle on it. So, yeah, why don't we do that? Good idea, Peter. So,
do you want to start with, I think on the agenda, I had the library next.
Yeah, you did. So why don't we do that? Let's move on to the library special article. Let's see, we have that here somewhere.
It's at tab 9 in your packet.
Tab 9, thank you. So that's just the warrant article language at tab 9.
I have general fund. They're requesting out of the general fund $337,500 for 2021, and then a bond of $4,911,788 in 2022. So, and they're going to have $450,000 in expenses in 21 with $112,500 coming out of their fund.
Yep.
So I guess we need to talk, to me, Wallace, and I may be wrong, we need to talk about the whole 9 yards on 21 and 22 and see if that's something that we want to promote.
Well, I think, in my opinion, we do need to look at it, because if we don't find the building cost palatable, then why would we invest in all the planning and engineering?
We all know what happens if you do that. If you put the planning out 2 or 3 years, the price goes up.
Yep.
So I'm inclined to say that we don't do this project at this time.
Mr. Chair, can I request that we let the library board speak?
I thought you might chime in, Kelly. I'm glad you did.
Thank you.
They are with us, I think. So yes, let's
ready to present.
What's that, Kelly?
I said yes, they were ready to present. So I'd
Good.
like
Okay,
to let
well,
them.
let's hear their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's only fair. They put a lot of time and effort into this.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Huntsman. I'm the chair of the Library Board of Trustees. Diane is with me here too. So the current warrant article is to do all the pre-construction planning and hiring of a construction manager to help do the actual budgeting and give us the best actual numbers. The numbers on the CIP for 2022 are our best estimates from the architect. Something that you need to know about numbers for 2022, also, we have formed a charitable foundation that is currently in the process of finalizing themselves, and they are planning a capital campaign to help offset some of that cost. I'll give you a little bit of background. This has been in the works for the library for at least 11 years. Back in 2009 is when the library had the town purchase the land out where the lawn is. And in 2018, we did a community survey to ask questions about what would be best, what people in town wanted for an addition if we did an addition. In 2019, we did a warrant article, and we're spending up to $80,000 for a feasibility study, which is giving us the draft designs, the preliminary draft designs that I know that you all got the link. If you haven't seen it, if anybody at home wants to see it, it's on the library website. There's a little green button that says building plans, building addition on the left-hand side. And that gives you all the pictures and things like that. Really, the project will benefit. I understand that this is a terrible time for this to come up. I totally understand that. It's not good. We don't think it's a great timing issue because of COVID. We get that. But all of the work that's gone in and all of the work is currently happening, it makes it really hard for us to stop. Benefits to the town right off the bat, if we did go forward with the project, is expanded parking in the downtown village area. We would potentially add up to 40, we would have 40 parking spaces. There would be a community room that would be accessible outside of library hours. We're planning to have it wired for GTV, so it could also act as alternative space for town and committees and boards to meet and be broadcast, as well as local groups, because that's one of the things that we get asked all the time is, oh, can we meet at the library, and we just don't have the space. This would actually make the library truly accessible. In 1997, the elevator was added, and that's the biggest change that the library's had in 111 years, because it was built in 1909, the whole building. So in 1997, we added the elevator, but we just recently had a gentleman come to the library, and he couldn't get his motorized wheelchair into our front door. So we are not currently accessible for how life is now. I mean, in 1909, they didn't have motorized wheelchairs and things like that. They're very hard to get into the one bathroom that we have at the library as well. It would add additional comfortable space to read and work, and for people to do all the research and use the internet if they can at home. That's something that was highly rated on our survey. It would separate the child and adult space, which adds to the safety of the library, as well as it was a highly rated topic in our survey. And I mentioned, yes, it would add much needed bathrooms that are truly accessible, bathrooms on both floors. I have, the library is currently about 7,500 square feet. The proposed addition would be 6,700 square feet and would bring us up to 14,200 square feet. I know that this is a hard choice for you, but for us, and as a town, as a board, we support the library trustees support the project. We've been working on it. We've been diligently working on it, and we need to see it be put off and then cost much more. Other current library expansions and additions going on in New Hampshire right now are in the same range. We've got Meredith has a $4 million bond. Peterborough has a $5.5 to $6 million bond, and Exeter is doing an addition and renovation, and they have their project is $5 million. That's just what it costs to add and renovate libraries at this time. I hope that you can support this. I understand that you have lots of hard choices to do. But if you have questions for me, and I can help you answer them, that I'm happy to do that.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Believe me when I tell you I appreciate you acknowledging that this is a really tough time for us to make this decision, and it's a really tough decision to make. I hear you loud and clear about if you stop now with all the work you did, it's more than an inconvenience. I understand that completely. I do have a question because I just feel the responsibility to ask it. What would the cost be if rather than, and I know this is not what you want, but what would the cost be if rather than go with the engineering and all of that and look at this addition, if you looked at simply making the library more accessible by making some adjustments to make sure that I get a motorized wheelchair in there, a bathroom? Has any thought been put into that given how tough things are now?
Okay, Chet. I will invite you to call Diane at the library, and she would be happy to give you or anybody a personalized mass tour with hand sanitizer of the library. There really just is not any space to put anything in the library right now. We haven't looked into just widening the door. There's not really a way, I don't think, or a space to easily do that. And I mean, the building was built in 1909. There's no space to put a bathroom. The 1997 renovation that added the library, that added the elevator, also converted the attic space, which was storage, to public space. So we're stuffed to the gills. We have benches on top of library shelves. We have supply cabinets inside the one bathroom. There's just not space here to do anything that would impact us in a significant way.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree, Amy. I knew that would be your answer. I've been to the library. I wanted to ask it in public.
Okay.
Other questions? Anything else from other board members? I'm not muted, am I? No, I'm not. Okay. Anybody? You have any other questions for us, Diane or Amy?
I would ask you to consider, if you don't want to fund it through taxes, to consider funding the town portion with unassigned fund balance. I know you could do it. I don't know if you want to, but it's part of what I do to just put it out there that it's something that you could do.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. The tough choices for sure.
Of course.
Well, thank you, ladies, for being with us and joining us and answering some tough questions. A lot of deliberations yet to come. So thank you for your time tonight.
And I'll be here until the end of the meeting if any other questions come up as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Where do you want to go from here, Collis?
Well, let's go back to the agenda because we had something else on special articles. We had the Main Street and the Main Street program. Derek was kind enough to pull together an extensive history of the monies that's been contributed to the Main Street program dating back to 1999, when it originally started at $15,000 a year. Held pretty steady, went up to 20 for a short time, and then back down to 15 $100,000 in 1919. Is there somebody from Main Street Program here tonight, Derek, do you know, that wants to present to the board?
Sorry, I'm muted. I'm talking to myself. Yeah, we do have Tracy Hutton, the executive director, is on with us, and I did have a chance to sit down with her last week and meet with her.
Okay, great. Tracy, hi, how are you tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
So, I just want to start by saying that, I don't envy your position, and I understand the tough choices the board has to make. Unfortunately, because I do have an executive board, I can't actually change the initial request that was made by Goffstown Main Street Program, but we do respect that the selectmen may not, may change the number or do whatever they think is appropriate. Just a brief comment in terms of what Main Street is really looking for from the board, and that is current and consistent support, which helps us obtain grants. So without the matching funds and support of the board, it becomes much more difficult for us to get grants to be self-sustaining. You do get more points on grant applications when you do have that support from a town. Additionally, one thing that wasn't mentioned at the last meeting was what we've done to supply PPE to the businesses and help them with their federal applications for COVID funding and some of those things. So we have kind of switched gears in this time to make sure that what we're doing for Goffstown is what Goffstown needs. And, I do think that the community would really suffer without the community building events that the program provides. And, as we talked about last week, we are using our cash on hand as much as is responsible to also offset our budget.
Thank you for that. Questions from the board members for Tracy?
Collis?
Yes, Mark.
So I've read all the information that Derek has passed on to us today. Looking at the numbers, I'm inclined to make that go from a $20,000, $15,000 back to the way it was. And if you look at the $15,000 deposits, there's like 13 of them versus the 5 or 7 that are 20. So I'm inclined to make this work at a $15,000 total.
Mark, was that a motion?
I'll make that a motion. How's that?
I'd second that.
Okay, so let's get to the Main Street program. Mark made a motion funded at 15.
A second for discussion?
Yes. Yeah, we're going to get to discussion as soon as we second motion get to the floor. And who had at 15,000? And who seconded that? Chet, right?
That was me. Yep.
Chet. Okay. So now, discussion of the motion. Peter, do you want to discuss that? I think.
My one comment would be: is this going to continue to be an ongoing thing, or is this going to eventually, as Tracy just said, that so they can be self-sufficient? I want to make sure that that's in the record, that their intention is to become self-sufficient, which was supposed to happen 10 years ago. So that's my concern. And every year we come in and say the same thing. We're going to be self-sufficient, but it's not happening.
Yeah, Peter, I'll just weigh in on that a bit. My hope and expectation would be, now that they've got a full-time director on board with a lot more experience in this sort of thing, and particularly in the fundraising field, that would be much more aggressive with pursuing grants and securing grants, which would serve to help with their operating expenses so that they could bring that down over time. But that's just my expectation. If we're going to go forward, that's certainly what I'd want to see come out of this.
May I make a comment?
Yes, please.
So while we would want to be self-sufficient, there'll always be a need for board support and community support, even if it's just through in-kind assistance. So while the financial will decrease, the need for your support and in-kind types of donations that'll always be there for us to be able to maintain our grant applications.
Yeah, I understand. I understand the grant process, and support at the local level weighs in heavy when you're submitting grant proposals and when they evaluate grant proposals and make decisions on where to award grant monies. Yeah, fully understand.
Well, I think they need to realize, because that's a lot of new people on that committee. They've always had that support from the town, whether it's been putting up barriers, supplying trash cans, picking things up. There's always been the support from the town in excess of the dollars. So to say that in kind, I'm hoping that's what you're talking about.
It should be. That's certainly in kind.
That is what I'm talking about. I think in the future, we're just going to have to document it a little bit better so that I can use it on the application.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, it makes sense to me as well. Yeah, document the hours put in, the number of people who donated their time, what their time's valued at, and other incidentals and those sorts of things. I think you can probably do, a lot more work or put some more effort into that area of documenting the in-kind match. Maybe we can get it up higher. Other board members have questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a
Yes,
question.
Kelly. Yes, Kelly.
More of a point of discussion, I suppose. I read through all of the documentation that Derek put together on the history of the request and the warrant articles. And there was some information in there about tapering, specifically to what we talked about last year.
Yep.
Looking at the request amounts, I think it would be appropriate to consider even a lower amount.
Then lower than 15?
Correct, because that was the amount last year. So if we're truly tapering, it would be less than that.
Do you have a suggestion or a recommendation?
Can I chime in?
Been made, so I'm not gonna.
Well,
you can amend the motion.
Can
I chime in?
Yeah, please.
So Kelly's right. We were told we're going to be decreasing. Now we're not. Mark's motion is to maintain. I would almost say that I would follow Mark's recommendation only with the acceptance from the director that they realize we intend to reduce this on a regular basis. Tracy, I guess I'm asking for you to say okay.
So I just have to make a caveat there. I can't bind my board.
Right.
So while I can say, yes, the board understands that there's taper talked about in the past and that there's taper talked about now, I can't bind their decisions. I'm only their employee.
Yeah, understood. You've got a board.
That's understood. But as the director, next year you'll be formulating the budget and request, and I would hope that you would personally say, okay, this is what we talked about, and I'm on board with it.
I can do that.
Thank you.
So there's no specific action there other than a strong recommendation that they look at ways to taper off the amount of contribution from the from the town.
Yeah, I move the question.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. I'm going to vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Where am I? Mark?
Yes, sir.
And Chet?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes 5-0-0 at $15,000. Thank you. And thank you, Main Street, for your input and your participation tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Collis?
Yes, Peter?
I would like to make a motion that we approve Crispin's house for the $20,000.
I'd second that.
Thank you, Peter. Motion made by Peter, seconded by is there any discussion on the motion? Anyone at all? No? Okay, I'll call the roll. I vote yes. Kelly? Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Peter?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes, sir.
And Chet?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes 5-0-0. I'm totally lost.
So are we back to the library or what are we doing?
Yeah, hang on, let me get back here. Yeah, we're at the library. Want to have further conversation about the library?
Mr. Chair?
You know, here's one thing I'm comfortable about. We know that ultimately, I'm just going to use round numbers. We know ultimately it's going to be a $5 million project, and we're asked to put up 10%, roughly $500,000 of it now. I have a hard time spending $500,000 when we know darn well we're looking at $5 million, because at some point in time, if we're going to commit that, I would hope that people out there would want to move to the next step. The next step would be moving from planning and engineering to construction. And that's when we'll have to go out to bond this thing at to the tune of $5 million. So
I make a motion that the select board does not recommend the library request.
okay, here's a motion from Peter. And the motion is, I gotta get back in my. So your motion, Peter, is not to support the warrant article language as proposed.
I think, yes, not at this time. I think what the library's presentation was they have space issues. We have space issues at a life safety facility also. And we really need to look at what we can do to help the police department. Now, you know, a $5 million bond for the library and knowing we need to do something at the police department is not going to sit well.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, you chat? Yes.
It is. Yes. I absolutely agree with what Peter just said. The part of the library presentation that really has me thinking, though, is the piece about accessibility. I feel strongly about accessibility in general, and I really feel that we should support something that gets them closer to that. Again, I knew the answer to my question if they looked at that only, what it would be. But it's still a staggering amount of money overall, given the situation that we're in. So I'm just openly saying I'm struggling with this one.
Yeah, thank you.
Also, just like to make a note that this is in the master plan currently and on slate to be in the master plan again.
Yep, duly noted.
That said, Kelly, the master plan doesn't consider our budget restrictions. It's a plan. The master plan's always been, it would be really nice to have all this stuff in town. That's what a master plan does.
I know what a master plan is. I'm just saying.
It doesn't necessarily address our budget issues, especially right now. We don't know what it's going to be like in a year from now. I'm really concerned. And that's the only reason why I speak against it. Chet's absolutely right. If they got an accessibility issue, we maybe have to look at that. But 500,000 or 450,000 and then a 4.9 million next year, I would hate to spend $450,000 on a study and then have the bond not go forward next year. Because what happens is just what will happen in Grasmere. We had to keep paying more money for a study to update it. And that really worries me when we do stuff like that.
So what I'm hearing is we need to provide some guidance to the library and the board of trustees that, you know, we need to know what their immediate needs are, and they need to be important and immediate needs that can be broken out and addressed incrementally, and what the opportunities are for that. And Kelly, I guess if you can take that message, I don't know what more we can do other than take that message back, because we got a motion on the floor right now. So
was that motion ever seconded?
No, it wasn't. It was a motion by you, Peter, and didn't get a second yet.
I don't think it ever got a second.
Did not. Excuse me. So do we have a second to Peter's motion? Peter, you want to just restate it just so everybody?
My motion was at this time to not recommend the 450,000 for, it's actually 377,000 for a study. It's $337,500 for the study and plan for a addition to the library.
So I think what the motion is, Peter, is your motion is not to bring this article warrant forward onto the ballot this year.
Right. Well, they still have the option to do it, but it won't come with a recommendation of the board.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, they could even bring it forward.
Yeah. But at this time, I would say the board does not bring it forward.
So we're on a second Peter's motion.
Question first, Carlos.
Go ahead, Mark, please.
Derek, so if we say no to this, what's this going to add to our budget?
So if the board goes through and does not propose this warrant article this year, it does not change anything about the default budget or the operating budget.
What's the cost of $337,000?
Go ahead. Finish.
It's estimated at 19 cents.
Okay, I'll second Peter's motion.
Okay, so we now have a second. Peter made the motion, now a second by Mark. Is there further discussion on this motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Can we discuss quickly the option of the fund balance and using that? And I say that with hesitation because Peter is absolutely correct about the bond issue. Things are tough right now. There is no way to predict what's going to happen. So if we were to spend this money and then the bond doesn't go through, it would be an incredible waste. But I think if we use unassigned fund balance, and I don't know if Amy's still on, but I would like to know the confidence level about a bond at this point, based on what other libraries are doing.
Amy, can you speak to that?
I'm not sure exactly what Chet was asking.
Still have to vote, Chet.
What is the competition out there for bonds? What's the likelihood we'd be able to secure a bond? Got any feel for that?
I don't really know.
I haven't done any research.
Yeah.
I will reiterate that there is a charitable foundation that will also be raising money through a capital campaign to offset that total, that projected total of 4.9 million.
But what's your target for that capital campaign?
See, we don't have a target yet because part of the warrant article is money to hire a fundraiser to help set a reasonable goal, a goal that is sustained by the local community. That's something that's attainable.
Can I just ask a question here, Carlos?
Certainly, Peter.
She said hire a fundraiser. Would that price come out of the $450,000 they're proposing?
That is in the warrant article, yes.
So part of the $450,000 is to hire a fundraiser.
Yes, to help with a capital campaign to offset the price tag of potentially $4.9 million. It's to offset whatever, and that's to help us determine and to do the best job we can to make it happen so it doesn't impact taxes as much as $4.9 million.
Okay, so the wording in the warrant article does not mention fundraising, but it does mention planning. So I assume that's what you're saying is part of the planning effort would be a fundraising campaign.
Yes, a capital campaign facilitated by the Goffstown Public Library Foundation, Charitable Foundation that's finalizing itself to take that over and to run with it.
Okay. So we still have a motion on the floor. It's been made and seconded, and we're now discussing it. Is there further discussion? At some point, I'm going to have to call a question.
Mr. Chair, I just want to add that I'm very happy Amy just reiterated the point about fundraising. Thank you for that, Amy.
Yes, thank you. Any other discussion? If not, I'm going to call a question.
Call a question.
Yep. Okay. I'm gonna say yes to Peter's motion, which was to put this off and not bring it forward. Kelly?
I'm gonna vote no.
Okay. Peter?
Yes.
Mark,
Yes, sir.
and Chet.
No.
We got a split vote, 3-2, but the motion does carry. Wish we had a bigger bag of money, folks. All right, well, that takes care of that agenda item.
Mr. Chair, how do you want to proceed on the operating budget and default budget? I indicated, I think, last week, and as well as in some correspondence with the board, the budget committee really does need to set their schedule for December, and I would say a drop dead deadline is to get it to them on December 1st, which is a month later than usual, but I think considering the situation we're in is understandable. And we do have, some availability. We've got the fire chief will not be available next Monday. So how do you want to proceed?
Well, we had it laid out, and we pushed it off a week, correct? We just pick up with the schedule, moved out.
No, I'm talking about the operating budget and default budget.
Oh, okay, yep.
Can I ask a question, Derek? Derek, my question is the only question now, or the only thing we're looking at now is how much of the unreserved fund balance we want to commit to that budget?
I think that is one of the questions that's before you. I think, the directive we had from the board last week was to propose a budget that is $8.24 tax. That is well below default, and none of the department heads felt comfortable making a recommendation to the board. So what we propose is move forward default, which is $8.91, as well as a operating budget for the general fund that $4 that uses $600,000, or what we would say will be in fund balance in 2021, but it's really the surplus that we are projecting this year. If you wanted to get to a general fund budget that matched your default in calculated tax rate, you would need to either eliminate or move approximately $226,000 either out of the budget or into special article using fund balance.
So to get to the 824 plus special articles, what do you need? Don't count special articles.
To get to the 824, 67 cents below default, you would need $1,992,000. Now you take away the $600,000 that we've already proposed, so that's about $1.4 million.
Additional.
Wow.
So we would be reducing the fund balance by approximately 1.4.
Yep.
Correct, and you would be 67 cents lower than default.
But my question is, we would be reducing the fund balance by 1.4.
Correct.
Yes, if you were going to propose the use
I
of
should
that,
say
yes.
the current fund balance.
Correct.
I'm also looking at the rest of the CIP project. I personally don't see anything else that I would like to discuss removing, but I don't know if anybody else does.
Like what?
I'm saying I don't have anything, but I don't know if anybody else does.
No, my feelings are we've let this fund balance grow. Maybe it's time that at these times, the way things are, maybe we're better off spending that 1.4 extra, reducing our fund balance by 1.4 to get that tax rate level for right now. And that'll be plus special articles, which would be right. Like I said, my feelings are we really need to take care of our employees, and that would be we go with the 824 plus the contracts.
Yeah, I've already expressed my opinion on that. I agree with that. I think we've let that fund balance build up for times exactly like this. And here we are faced with a time where we need to tap in very heavily into the unassigned fund balance for good reason. And I think now's the time to do it.
I agree 100%, Collis and Peter.
Hey, Collis?
Yeah.
All right, so if I make a motion, the motion I want to make is that we take 1.4 billion out of the unreserved fund balance and throw it into the budget. Does that work?
Well, if that question, don't we need 2 million or the 1.9, Derek? Because you guys have already decided to use 600.
And
We have, yeah, so this would be an additional 1.4.
okay, additional 1.4.
Yes.
We're talking 2 million.
$2 million. Yep.
Eric, are you sure it's 1.4? I had written down 1.7 earlier.
I would ask you of any numbers that I gave you last week, please don't use any that we used on the meeting on the 16th. I did not have the war service credits figured into that amount.
Okay.
So the correct number is still the 1.4 then, right?
Yeah, plus the 600 surplus.
Plus the 600. That's my motion.
And I'll second that motion.
Hey, we have a motion and a second. Is any discussion on the motion? Everyone's clear what the motion is. Any discussion?
Move the question.
Any discussion? Last chance. It's a big ticket item. You know, I want to make sure people have plenty of opportunity to give it another second to think about it. Okay, you've had your second. Okay, so motions on the floor. I'll call a roll. I vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes, sir.
And Chet?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thanks, folks. That was a tough one. All right. Now I've completely lost where we are. What time is it?
Right now you're at 7:45 p.m.
And we're at, we're select board discussion, right? Yeah, we've covered everything.
You have board discussion. I did have one new item that I had talked to you, Mr. Chairman, about this afternoon.
Yeah. Let's bring that. Let's discuss that one right now, Derek, because that's important.
Okay. Thank you. The department heads and I would like to speak with the board this evening about our operations as we, I guess, within the context of the quickly changing COVID numbers that we're seeing. And I'd ask maybe the Goffstown Fire Chief if he could just kind of give us the numbers of where we are in the state in Goffstown right now.
You still with us, Chief? Chief Allard?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
What's the situation? What's the lay of the land?
Sure, if I could actually, Derek, do I have authorization to share screens?
I will give it to you. Yep. Let me move There you go.
1 second. So I just wanted to share with the board kind of an overview on nationally and kind of work our way down to the local level. So as you can see on the screen here, this comes from Johns Hopkins University. We have 59 million cases worldwide. If you drill down to where that is in the United States, we're over the 12 million mark. When we get to New Hampshire, I think most people may have seen this. Right now, it's over 18,000 cases. I went back and it was about a month ago, that number was about 8,000. So we've had a significant increase over the last month, which I'm sure everybody has been watching this on the news. You can see here on this, and this comes from the Department of Health and Human Services. This shows our 7-day average within the state. Right here, it's just over kind of the 400 mark on average, which is pretty significant if you look back on this graph from March. In the April timeframe, when in May, we were in the 100 range, and then we've certainly had a spike as we're approaching the holiday season here. When we look at our number of tests per day, and this is the on the right-hand slide, percent positive per day, so that number is certainly increasing. On this one was as of the 22nd, I think it was like 4.9. So the percent positive certainly increasing within the state. And then our deaths have certainly been increasing. This is definitely community spread. It's spreading through all age groups, as you can see on the screen here. Originally, it was kind of the our older population, or people with comorbidities. It's certainly well spread out through every age group. This slide here is very interesting because the number here of community transmission has certainly increased over the last several months, and also clusters. And that we're certainly seeing that at the local level within Goffstown. Our numbers published, as most people watch on MUR, I think it was 53 today. I will always make the caveat that numbers not always perfect, because as the state, as we see cases drop off, the state numbers don't change as rapidly. So that number is less locally. So that certainly, for me personally, seeing that community transmission and more clusters is certainly concerning, and led to some discussion amongst the department heads with regards to how do we best, one, protect our employees and still continue the level of service to the community. I just wanted to kind of give that background as the town administrator starts talking about the conversation that the department heads had. And again, just as the last slide there is to remind people, wash your hands, social distance. There's a mask mandate out now. Make sure we're doing all those things. And, I just said not share, Derek?
Yep, if you just hit not share, it should turn it off. Let me see if I can pull it back from you.
Thank you.
So,
Thanks for that brief, Chief.
You're welcome.
Pretty grim
The
number.
purpose of us bringing this information is department heads anticipate, especially with the board passing the budget onto the budget committee at this point, I was not planning on having you meet on November 30th. And with the holiday and a 2-week in between meetings, we anticipate that we could have a very rapid change, whether it be an employee with a positive test, or it might be an employee's family member that forces employees into quarantine. And we just wanted to talk with the board and propose that if the department heads be given the latitude to make changes to staffing hours as well as building access, and should we need to do that, bring that back to the board and convene a meeting of the select board within 48 to 72 hours after any decisions are made.
You need a motion for that, Derek?
That would be great.
I'd make a motion that in the event that the circumstance arises, decisions need to be made, they can call a meeting of the select board at 24 to 72 hours.
And if I could just could I just ask that you add that while waiting for that meeting, that the department head would have the latitude to make immediate changes?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks for the motion, Peter. I heard a couple of, somebody want to weigh in again, please, to second it?
I seconded.
Thank you, Kelly. So motion by Peter and a second by Kelly. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. I vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Chet?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes 5-0-0.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Kelly?
With that being said, knowing that this is coming up again, can we put out some more information to employees on what happens if they do have symptoms or they do get a positive test, what that means for them and their benefit usage and FMLA expansions?
Yeah, Derek, can we put out some things if you haven't already?
Yes, last week we put out updated travel guidance, as well as provided the information about the mask mandate. And I believe all department heads informed their employees of what their expectations were of mask use within their own buildings. So we have done that, but I think that's a good idea from Vice Chair Boyer to remind employees of what they have for benefits. So I'll work with finance so we can get that information back out to remind people what they do have for leave availability to them.
Great, thank you.
Derek, I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Peter.
how does HIPAA fall into this?
It's definitely a very delicate subject. So an employee's positive test is protected information to the point where we still have the ability to inquire with them if they've had close contact under the CDC and the state's definition. If they've had close contact with any fellow employees, we continue to reiterate mask use as well as maintaining social distance. So we're hopeful that we don't have to quarantine anyone else. It is something that we are trying to straddle that line between getting the information out to our employees when somebody either has a positive test or has close contact to a confirmed case. So we are kind of working with the guidance from the state EOC, the fire chief, as well as HR and finance on. So we make sure that we don't violate anyone's HIPAA rights.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Kelly,
I have another question, please.
floor's yours.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, so in the past, we had made some individual department exceptions to staffing, and under the motion, we just approved that we would let department heads make changes appropriately. Does that include emergency leave in the way that we used it in the past with DPW, or?
I think emergency leave under the current personnel plan is authorized for use by the department head's discretion. And at the next select board meeting, they bring that information. They are supposed to bring that information to the select board so they can make a decision. I would say that any widespread use of emergency time or emergency leave by department heads would be that triggering event where we would try and convene a meeting, working with the chair to schedule one between 24 and 72 hours.
Okay, thanks. What I was mentioning about, reminding employees of their benefits and the protocol to take if, they have something happen is the use of sick time and what that means. So I just want to make sure we're clear about, how we're implementing this with employees and if we're making any changes to specific departments. So that helps to clarify. Yeah, I guess that's my.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kelly. Communication is going to be critical because this is changing rapidly. We don't know if it's going to change up or down, so we need to make sure that we communicate frequently.
Yeah, and we're not, again, the department heads aren't, I guess, anticipating widespread use of emergency leave at this time. However, departments are starting to be touched by the mandatory quarantine, the mandatory self-isolation. You've got people returning from college, you've got people, so whether it's that, whether it's close exposure, we've got every situation that we go through every day, going through the protocols. We're talking about this on an hour by hour basis versus a once a week basis right now between department heads.
Yeah, and you got to remember, we're going to have everybody returning from Thanksgiving in spite of, the encouragement to stay at home for Thanksgiving. That's not going to happen, and people are going to be returning. Who knows what's going to happen at that point?
So Derek, under current policy, employees would be required to use sick time for that. Is that correct? For
what?
If they're not able to work.
Again, it's going to depend on yeah, thank you, Danielle, for popping in, but a lot of it's going to depend on if it was a non-essential travel that would trigger a certain quarantine and a certain leave use. Another would be if it was quarantine due to close contact, if it's a positive test. So there's a whole multitude, and maybe Danielle can hit on it very briefly.
Just before Danielle jumps in, I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that the board's all on the same page and the department heads are all on the same page for how we're starting off this process and as we make adjustments as needed. So Derek, when you send out that information to employees, can you send it to the board as well?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just to give a little bit more background on that specific question. Employees still have access to the emergency sick leave, which was added back in March under the expansion of FMLA and the expansion of emergency sick leave. That time is equivalent to 2 weeks of the employee's scheduled work week, and it is available through the end of December. There has not been any discussion at the federal level about extending that, so we are keeping our ear to the ground and looking for additional information to come forward. And then if employees have already exhausted that emergency sick leave, then it would start going against the employee's regular sick time accrual in most cases. So again, it does depend on what specifically they are out for, whether it is their own symptoms, whether it's potential exposure to someone else who was positive, whether it's potential exposure to somebody who's not yet confirmed positive or negative. So we do have to go through those algorithms and questionnaires to figure out what specific category applies to the employee. But that COVID sick time is still available to them.
Thank you, Danielle. Any other questions? Okay, lost track of where we are. Do we took action on a motion. Those are just guidance that's going to be put out. And you're going to pull that together, Derek.
Yep, and I'll copy the board on that. I would say at this point, the only item remaining on your agenda is if the board had any new business, and then you have action matrix, and then we do have a couple items for non-public.
Yeah. All right, so any new business from anybody? Because we do have the matrix up under the old business that we need to go over. Anything new? Any new business from board members? No. Okay, so let's hit the action matrix. The first one is the Wallace Road Roundabout. What's the latest and greatest on that? I mean, I know we did
that one's really just will be in the 2021 road plan, depending on what the budget passed. That one, if it's okay with the chair, I can take it off the action matrix for the time being. Or do you want that to remain on there?
Yeah, let's leave it on just so it doesn't slip our minds. Doesn't hurt to carry it forward. And then the Village Pedestrian Ad Hoc Committee did meet for the first time. They elected a chairman, Andrew Carteret, and the vice chair. I forgot who the vice chair was. Derek, do you recall?
I don't recall. I'll have to look at my notes because I got to do the minutes for that tomorrow.
So anyways, that committee has met for the first time. They've established the third Thursday of each month as the standing meeting day for that subcommittee. So they'll be beginning their work in earnest. And that's not much else to report on that till after they meet for the first time. Let's see, personnel plan, that's ongoing.
Yep.
And grants. Letter of intent was submitted for the historical resources.
Yes, that was. So we'll just wait to hear back on that.
Okay. And let's see, what else we got here? I guess that's it. Okay, vehicles, any update on the vehicles? I see a couple on our action matrix. There was the F550 4x4 dump frame repair. Adam, what's the status on that one?
That I do not believe that came back today. That's out for some welding on the plow frame. So the truck itself is drivable, but it's not able to be used for plowing right now. So that's welded.
Any idea when we'll get it back?
With the holiday, I hesitate to think it was more than a couple-day repair, but with the holiday, we may not see it this week. So we'll keep tracking. If we can get it back before Wednesday, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you. And then there was the solid waste trail. That was a live floor issue, right?
Yes, sir.
And that is, well, where's that stand?
I think parts have been ordered for that. I do not believe they've actually started the work yet.
Okay. All right. Anything else to come before the board? Because we do have a non-public that we need to enter.
Just public comment, Mr. Chair, and there's nobody currently on the phone.
Thank you. Let me just broadcast though. Anybody from the public who may be participating remotely in this meeting wants to make public comment, now would be your opportunity. If there's
This is Kathy Holt, and I'm a library trustee.
Oh, hello. Good evening.
Hi there. So I'm just curious because you know that the library trustees are going to go back with your vote. So the vote was 3-2 in favor of not supporting the library special article. So my question is, there's a lot of work that goes into putting forward the information for this special article. So I guess I'm curious as to whether or not, and I know you can't speak for future boards, but is it the 400 and something $1,000 or the fact that those not in favor of supporting it at this point would not support the 4.9 million later?
That's the message I heard. But I also heard that the board was receptive to looking at the overall project and seeing if you could break out specific components of it, like accessibility issues, and be more specific and bring down the cost and maybe bring forward some incremental improvements that could be accomplished without, of course, you'd have to make sure you don't have to jeopardize the overall bigger plan. But I think it could be done. I think the consensus of the board was need to look at it a little more closely.
So you're not in favor of supporting a full over 6,000 square foot renovation? I mean, addition and a renovation.
The full
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
This is for public comment, not really for discussion.
No, I get it. So yeah, you're talking about the full plan. Just to be clear. Yeah, okay. So what did you want to leave with the board as a comment?
I guess the comment is that it's really hard going forward. We've been bringing this forward since 2009. Different times we've gone to the CIP and the message has come back every time. It's not your turn.
Okay, well, we thank you for the comment. We'll include that in our future deliberations. Thank you. Okay, anybody else you see out there, Derek? No? Okay, I'm gonna close.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make the motion. We go into non-public under RSA 91-A:3, 2, B hiring, and A personnel.
Second.
Okay, motion by Peter on the non-public, seconded by Chet. I vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Mark, non-public? Uh-oh. Mark, are you there?
Yeah, I'll say. Goes to sleep on me.
Okay, and Chet?
Yes.
Okay, we're in non-public. Thank you, folks, for joining us through various media outlets. That concludes our public portion of the meeting. We're going into non-public session, so we'll be signing off for tonight. Thank you for participating. Please stay safe, stay healthy. Have a happy